The silence in the chamber of celestial Concord was a physical weight, heavier than the gravity of the neutron star that held the station in its unyielding embrace. High Chancellor Vorlag of the Cathar Imperium felt it press upon his multifaceted carapace, a pressure that had been building for cycles, ever since the Sol system had fallen dark. It was not a darkness of extinguished light, but of profound, impossible construction. Floating in the center of the vast, circular chamber, a holographic projection shimmered with terrifying grace. It was a sphere of absolute nothingness, a perfect void that encapsulated the third planet, its moon, and the space between. Scanners that could peer into the hearts of suns and map the quantum foam of reality itself returned only a flat, featureless null. No energy, no matter, no information. It was as if the universe simply ended at its edge. The structure which the junior races had taken to calling the Aegis was a violation, not of treaty or border, but of existence itself. Vorlag adjusted his position on the Chancellor's dais, his crystalline limbs making soft, grating sounds against the polished obsidian. Around him, the delegates of the Grand Compact stewed in their own unique expressions of anxiety. The Glim, beings of cohesive light, pulsed with a frantic, discordant rhythm, their usual serene glow corrupted by flickers of violet fear. Warlord Grak of the Zorgan hegemony, a mountain of scaled muscle and barely contained aggression, gripped the arms of his grav throne so tightly that the metallic composite groaned in protest. His people saw only a fortress, a challenge, a weapon waiting to be unveiled. HFY, the empathic speaker for the silent choir of Cygnus, had withdrawn so deeply into their meditative trance that their physical form had become almost translucent, unable to bear the sheer psychic void emanating from the human system. It was a silence that screamed across the void, a silence born of a power that none of them could comprehend. It has been 3 standard rotations since the final closure, Warlord Grak's voice boomed, a gravelly avalanche of sound that shattered the oppressive quiet. Their star system, their communications, their presence on every interstellar network extinguished. They have sealed themselves in a tomb of their own making, or a fortress. The distinction is academic, the act is one of aggression. Vorlag's mandibles twitched, a subtle gesture of dismissal. Aggression, Warlord? They have withdrawn. They have built a wall, not a sword. Our long-range sensor arrays, even the temporal resonance probes, detect no outward radiation, no energy buildup, no posture of attack. They have simply ceased to be a part of this galaxy. A silence can be the most deafening of threats, High Chancellor, countered a soft, chiming voice. It was Prelate Oran, whose silicon-based people, the Sil, perceived reality as a grand, cosmic calculation. The equation they have solved is one we did not even know how to write. The energy required to warp spacetime into such a stable, negative curvature shell is beyond the output of a dozen main-sequence stars, harnessed over millennia. The material science to contain such forces is a theoretical fantasy. Humans were a Tier 2 civilization, barely capable of sustainable interstellar travel. For them to achieve this is a discontinuity. It is a variable that breaks the entire theorem of galactic power. The Glim delegate shimmered, its light form coalescing enough to project its thoughts into the chamber's universal translator. We feel nothing. Before they were a cacophony, billions of minds, a chaotic but vibrant song of hope, fear, love, and ambition. Now there is only the void. It is not the silence of peace. It is the silence of an empty room where a predator waits. This was the heart of their terror. It was not what humanity had done, but how they had done it. They were a young species, barely a cosmic heartbeat old. They had stumbled out of their gravity well with primitive chemical rockets while the Cathar were etching the histories of galaxies onto mnemonic crystals. They were loud, emotional, prone to internal conflict, and their expansion had been erratic and clumsy. The Compact had regarded them with a kind of detached paternalism, a curious but ultimately harmless species to be monitored and gently guided. They were not considered a threat, or even a significant player. They were children. And those children had just constructed a monument to impossibility that dwarfed the combined technological prowess of the entire Grand Compact. The question is not how but why, Vorlag stated, his voice cutting through the rising tide of fear. He gestured a crystalline talon toward the hologram. No civilization builds such a thing without a reason so profound, so absolute that it justifies severing itself from the universe. Are they hiding from us, or are they hiding from something else? Warlord Grak snorted, a plume of superheated vapor jetting from his reptilian nostrils. What could be a greater threat than the combined might of the Zorgan fleets? What could possibly frighten a species into such an act of cosmic isolation? This is not fear, High Chancellor. It is arrogance. It is a statement. They have declared themselves apart from us, above us. They have built their impenetrable shell, and for all we know, they are now building the weapon that will crack our worlds from within it. Your paranoia is predictable, Grak, Vorlag said, his tone flat. You see a nail for your hammer in every shadow, but logic dictates we consider all possibilities. For a species to abandon expansion, to abandon trade, to abandon all contact, the motivation must be existential. We have sent diplomatic overtures, hails on every known frequency, even probes designed to broadcast messages of peaceful inquiry directly into their system's quantum substrate. There has been no reply. Only the perfect, impenetrable silence. The debate raged on, a familiar storm of speculation and fear. The militarists argued for a show of force, to surround the Sol system with warships, a pointless gesture against a barrier that did not even register their most powerful weapons. The mystics and empaths spoke of a spiritual ascension, a collective evolution that had taken humanity beyond the physical plane, leaving the Aegis as a hollow monument. The scientists and engineers, like Prelate Oran, were the most terrified of all. They, more than anyone, understood the sheer, sanity-defying scale of the feat. They whispered of new physics, of technologies that drew power from other dimensions, of a leap in understanding so vast it was indistinguishable from magic. Vorlag listened, his ancient mind sifting through the noise. He had studied humanity. He had read their histories, their philosophies, their art. They were a species of profound contradictions. They could be wantonly destructive, yet capable of breathtaking acts of self-sacrifice. They were fractured into countless ideologies, yet could unify against a common threat with a ferocity that was terrifying to behold. They were ephemeral, their individual lives a mere flicker, yet they built for eternity and obsessed over legacy. He had always found them fascinating, a chaotic system that somehow, against all odds, produced moments of sublime order. But this was not chaos. This was a singular, unified act of will on a scale that beggared belief. It was the work of a species that had become one, its purpose absolute. High Chancellor, came a new voice, quiet and technical, from the communications pit below the dais. A priority alert from the outer perimeter pickets. There is an arrival. A wave of tension washed through the chamber. Every delegate turned their attention to the main tactical display. Warlord Grak leaned forward, a predatory gleam in his eyes. Human warships. No, Warlord, the technician replied, his subharmonics trembling. A single vessel. It just appeared, no gravitic displacement, no hyperspace rupture. It was simply not there, and then it was. On the screen, a new icon blinked into existence, just outside the Cathar picket line that patrolled the edge of what had once been human-monitored space. It was small, impossibly small. A scout ship, perhaps. A drone. Magnify the image, Vorlag commanded. The hologram in the center of the room shifted. The silent, black sphere of the Aegis shrank, replaced by a crystalline rendering of the new contact. The vessel was sleek, elegant, a sliver of polished obsidian and soft, internal light. It bore no visible weapons, no overt drive signatures, no shields. It was a study in minimalism, a stark contrast to the baroque, heavily armored warships of the compact races. And emblazoned on its hull was a simple, stark white symbol, a circle bisected by a single line with a smaller circle at its center, the symbol of the Terran Alliance. A wave of collective shock, disbelief, and fear rippled through the delegates. After all this time, after the deafening silence, they had sent this, a single, unarmed vessel. They are hailing us, the technician announced, his voice now barely a whisper. Standard diplomatic channel, audio and visual, they are broadcasting their identity. It is the Terran diplomatic vessel Odyssey. Warlord Grak threw his head back and laughed, a harsh, grating sound. A diplomatic vessel. They build a god engine around their star, sever all contact for cycles, and then send a single ship to talk. This is mockery, a display of contemptuous power. Or, Vorlag countered, his gaze fixed on the serene image of the human ship. It is an invitation, an explanation. He straightened to his full, imposing height. Open the channel, route it to this chamber. Let us finally hear the reason for this silence. The air crackled with anticipation. The central hologram dissolved, reforming into a viewscreen. And for a moment it was filled with static, then it resolved into a clear, stable image. The bridge of the human ship was as minimalist as its exterior. Soft, white light emanated from the walls themselves. There were no visible controls, no frantic crew members. There was only a single figure standing in the center of the frame. a human female. She was dressed in a simple, dark blue uniform, adorned with no rank or insignia save for the same symbol on the ship's hull, embroidered over her heart. Her hair was dark, pulled back from a face that was calm, composed, and utterly unreadable. Her eyes, a shade of deep brown, held a profound and unsettling stillness. There was no fear in them, no arrogance, no emotion at all that the assembled aliens could parse. It was the placid gaze of a being who held an absolute and unshakable certainty. She inclined her head slightly, a gesture of formal greeting their translators had long ago catalogued. Her voice, when it came, was clear, measured, and carried an unnerving serenity. "This is Ambassador Eva Rostova of the Terran Alliance. I speak on behalf of humanity. To whom do I have the honor of addressing?" For a long moment, the entire chamber of Celestial Concord was stunned into silence. They had expected a warlord, a prophet, a madman. They had expected threats or demands or insane proclamations. They had not expected this quiet, dignified, and utterly calm professionalism. Vorlag was the first to recover. He drew himself up, the weight of his office and the history of his people settling upon him like a familiar cloak. "Ambassador Rostova, I am High Chancellor Vorlag of the Cathar Imperium, speaking for the Grand Compact. You have much to explain. Your silence has been a source of considerable concern." The human ambassador's expression did not change. "The silence was necessary. The construction was necessary. We regret the alarm it has caused. That is why I am here, to provide context." Warlord Grak surged to his feet, his voice a furious roar. "Context! You build a fortress that defies the laws of physics, you imprison your own star, and you offer context. This is an act of war, an act of supreme arrogance." Ambassador Rostova's gaze shifted to the hologram of the Zorgan warlord. She did not flinch. She did not react to his outburst. She simply watched him, her stillness a more powerful rebuke than any retort. After a moment of unnerving silence, she spoke again, her voice as level as before. "It is not a fortress, Warlord Grak. It is a shield, and it was not born of arrogance but of necessity. A necessity you and the rest of the Grand Compact are, as of yet, unaware of." The chamber descended into a tense murmur. Vorlag silenced them with a sharp gesture. "Elucidate, Ambassador. What necessity could possibly justify such an extreme measure?" The woman Rostova took a slow breath. "To understand, you must first reevaluate certain assumptions about the nature of the universe. For millennia, your civilizations have mapped the cosmos. You have measured the expansion of spacetime, the decay of stars, the predictable, orderly march of entropy. You see the universe as a vast but ultimately stable system, winding down over trillions of years. You are, I regret to inform you, catastrophically wrong." A chill, colder than the vacuum between galaxies, seemed to seep into the chamber. The prelate of the sill leaned forward, his crystalline face a mask of intense concentration. "A bold claim, Ambassador. Our models are based on eons of observation. They are proven." "Your models," Rostova replied, "are incomplete. They account for the symptoms but not the disease. You have been measuring a shadow unaware of the object casting it. Humanity has spent the last of its cycles not expanding but listening. We turned our instruments inward, not outward. We analyzed the quantum foam, the background radiation, the very fabric of causality, and we found a pattern, a flaw, a subtle, pervasive, and accelerating decay." She paused, letting her words settle. The holographic image behind her flickered, replaced by a complex, multi-layered star chart of the galaxy. It looked familiar to them all. "This is the galaxy as your sensors perceive it," she said. Then, with a gesture they couldn't see, the map changed. A faint, almost imperceptible filigree of darkness was overlaid upon it, a creeping, web-like pattern of something. It seemed to emanate from the galactic core, spreading outward like a stain. "And this," she continued, her voice dropping to a near whisper, "is the galaxy as it truly is." "What is this data?" Prelate Orun demanded, his voice sharp with a mixture of skepticism and dawning horror. "What does it represent?" "We call it the Silent Doom," Rostova answered. "It is not a force, it is not an energy, it is a fundamental unraveling, a degradation of the laws of physics. In the regions most affected," she gestured to the darkening core, "causality begins to F. Ray, quantum states fail to resolve. Matter loses cohesion. Information, the most fundamental property of existence, is being erased. It is a slow, silent death of reality itself." A wave of disbelief and consternation swept the chamber. Warlord Grak scoffed. "Fairy tales? Cosmic superstitions designed to frighten children. You expect us to believe the universe is simply falling apart. We do not expect you to believe, Rostova said calmly. We expect you to observe. We have transmitted the raw data to your public channels, the resonance patterns, the quantum signature of the decay. Your scientists have undoubtedly detected these anomalies for centuries. They have dismissed them as background noise, as sensor ghosts, as statistical outliers. They did so because the alternative was unthinkable. We did not have the luxury of dismissing them. Our home system, Sol, was closer to one of the primary decay vectors. Vorlag felt his mind reeling. He instantly accessed the Imperium's deepest scientific archives. He recalled the reports: anomalous quantum fluctuations near the Sagittarius A black hole, unexplained redshift deviations in distant star clusters, reports from deep space probes that had gone silent after transmitting streams of nonsensical data. It had all been dismissed, filed away as phenomena beyond their current understanding. But humanity, they had not dismissed it. They had seen the pattern. You built the Aegis to protect yourselves from this decay? Vorlag asked, the words feeling alien and heavy in his throat. Precisely, Rostova confirmed. The Aegis is not a shield of matter or energy. Such things would be useless. It is a stabilized pocket of spacetime, a causality anchor. It does not block the decay. It enforces the integrity of physical law within its boundary. It is a bubble of reality in an ocean of encroaching dissolution. We had to sever ourselves completely, as any connection, any wormhole, any form of faster-than-light travel would have served as a conduit for the decay to enter our sanctuary. The scale of the revelation was staggering. It recontextualized everything. The impossible energy expenditure, the absolute silence, the withdrawal. It was not aggression, it was not arrogance, it was survival. It was the most desperate act of self-preservation in the history of the galaxy. S.H. Vane, the Signan empath, finally spoke, its form shimmering with a pained, empathetic light. The void we felt, it was not a hostile silence. It was the absence of this unraveling, a place of true quiet, a place of safety. Yes, Rostova acknowledged with a slight nod. Inside the Aegis, the universe is as it should be, stable, sane, but it is a temporary solution, a lifeboat. The decay is accelerating. Based on our projections, large swathes of the galaxy will become uninhabitable within a few thousand cycles. Your core worlds, Warlord Grak, will be among the first to experience total systemic collapse. The Zorgan warlord was, for the first time, silent. His brutish confidence seemed to shrink under the weight of her calm, factual pronouncements. The threat of a human superweapon was something he could understand, something he could fight. But how did one fight the universe itself? How did one wage war on the concept of entropy? Vorlag's mind raced, processing the implications. The humans had faced an existential threat that the rest of the galaxy had not even been able to see. And they had not panicked. They had not lashed out. They had not fled in a million refugee ships spreading chaos. They had quietly, logically, and with terrifying unity built an ark. They had saved themselves. But why reveal it now? Why send this single ship? Why are you telling us this, Ambassador? Vorlag asked, his voice low and serious. You are safe. Your people are secure. You have no obligation to the rest of us. Why break your silence now? This was the critical question. It would define humanity's intentions more than any technological marvel. Was this a gloating revelation of their superiority, a warning to stay away, or something else entirely? Ambassador Rostova's placid expression finally shifted. A flicker of something profound and deeply weary passed through her eyes. It was not sadness, not quite. It was the look of one who had carried a terrible burden for a very long time. Because our lifeboat is not large enough, she said softly. When we began construction of the Aegis, we believed we were alone in our discovery. We acted to preserve the spark of intelligent life that we knew of, our own. But in the final stages of the project, as our new deep-range causal sensors came online, we saw the full picture. We saw you, the Cathar, the Zorgan, the Glim. Dozens of civilizations, billions of sentient beings, all drifting toward the same inevitable end, blind to the abyss. She took another slow breath, and the full weight of her next words fell upon the chamber like a shroud. We built the Aegis to save. Humanity, I am here to offer you the chance to save yourselves. The silence that followed was different from the one that had begun the council. The first had been a silence of fear and ignorance. This was a silence of awe, of horror, and of a dawning, terrifying understanding. The humans were not a threat. They were not an enemy. They were a prophet. They were the lone watchmen in the night, crying out a warning of a doom that no one else had the eyes to see. "What are you proposing?" Prelate Oran asked, his voice trembling with the enormity of the moment. "The principles behind the Aegis are complex, but they are not magic," Rostova explained. "They are merely the application of a deeper understanding of physics, an understanding we are prepared to share. The raw energy and material requirements are vast, but not beyond the combined industrial capacity of the Grand Compact. You have the resources, you have the manpower, you lack only the knowledge and the unity of purpose. We can provide the first. The second you must find within yourselves." She gestured, and the hologram behind her shifted again, displaying the elegant, interlocking schematics of a spacetime stabilization field generator. The mathematics flowing across the screen were of a beauty and complexity that made the Sill prelate gasp. It was a complete theory of everything, a perfect, unified model of all cosmic forces. It was the holy grail that every physicist in the galaxy had sought for eons, and the humans were simply giving it away. "This is everything," Prelate Oran whispered, his mind struggling to absorb the sheer density of information. "The key to limitless energy, to absolute material control, to reality itself." "It is the key to survival," Rostova corrected gently. "And it comes with a condition, a price. Not for us, but for you. You must work together. The Zorgan hegemony cannot build an Aegis on its own, neither can the Cathar Imperium. The project requires a level of coordination and resource sharing that will make this grand compact seem like a loose gathering of primitive tribes. You must become a single, unified entity with a single goal, the preservation of sentient life in this galaxy. You must set aside your old rivalries, your borders, your greed, or you will all be erased." Warlord Grak stared at the schematics, his warrior's mind struggling to reframe the universe. He saw not a weapon, but a tool. He saw not a human trick, but a blueprint for a shield that could protect his people, a shield he could not build by conquest, only by cooperation. For the first time in his long, violent life, he was faced with an enemy that could not be fought with ships and armies. Vorlag watched the faces of the delegates. He saw the greed in the eyes of some, already calculating how this new science could be turned into a weapon. He saw the fear in others, overwhelmed by the scale of the task. And he saw the dawning hope in a few. This was the precipice of history. Humanity had not only given them a warning and a solution, but also a test. A final, great filter. Could they overcome their own nature to survive? "Humanity will assist," Rostova continued, her voice pulling them all back to her. "The Odyssey is a mobile repository of all our knowledge. We will establish a permanent embassy here on this station. Our engineers, our physicists, our sociologists who helped unify our own fractured world will be at your disposal. We will guide you. We will teach you. We offer you not just a blueprint, but a partnership." It was an act of profound, almost unbelievable altruism. To face extinction, to solve it for themselves, and then to turn back to the very galaxy they had cut themselves off from, extending a hand to those who had feared and misjudged them. It was a gesture of such ethical and logical purity that it defied all the cynical calculations of galactic politics. Vorlag knew what his decision must be. He knew what the Compact's decision must be. There was no other choice, annihilation or unity. He turned to address the chamber, his voice resonating with the authority of his ancient line. "Delegates of the Grand Compact, we stand at the end of an age. The age of petty squabbles of borders drawn in the empty dust between stars is over. We have been blind, and humanity has given us sight. We have been adrift, and they have offered us an anchor." The Zorgan warlord spoke of arrogance. He was right. The arrogance was ours, for assuming we knew the shape of the universe. For assuming we were its masters. He paused, his gaze sweeping across the stunned faces. "There will be hardship. There will be sacrifice. Old ways must die for new life to begin, but we will not face this long night alone." He turned his attention back to the calm, waiting human on the view screen. "Ambassador Rostova, on behalf of the Cathar Imperium, and I hope soon on behalf of a truly grand compact, we accept your offer. We accept your partnership." A ripple of assent, hesitant at first, then growing in strength, moved through the chamber. The glim pulsed with a steady, hopeful light. The Sill prelate was already deep in calculations, his people's purpose renewed. Even Warlord Grak gave a slow, grudging nod, the pragmatist in him overriding the warrior. They were united. Not by treaty or by conquest, but by a shared, cosmic terror and a single, flickering flame of hope offered by the most unlikely of saviors. The formal alliance was forged in the cycles that followed. The Chamber of Celestial Concord was transformed from a forum of debate into the central command of the largest engineering project in galactic history, Project Lifeline. Human advisors worked alongside Cathar architects and Zorgan logisticians. Old prejudices slowly, painstakingly, began to erode under the pressure of a common goal. Fleets of warships were repurposed into supply convoys. Worlds that had once competed for resources now shared them freely. The galaxy was being remade, not by war but by work. Vorlag found himself spending much of his time with Ambassador Rostova. He had expected to find a being of cold, calculating logic, but as he came to know her, he saw the deep well of humanity beneath the serene surface. He saw the weight of the billions of lives she represented, the sorrow for the galaxy they had been forced to leave behind, and the fierce, quiet pride in her species' resilience. One cycle, during a review of the energy grid schematics for the first of the new Aegis spheres, Vorlag paused, a question that had long been troubling him finally surfacing. "Ambassador," he began, his mandibles clicking thoughtfully, "there is one thing I still do not fully comprehend. The science you have given us, it is a leap of millennia. Our most brilliant minds are still struggling to grasp its foundational principles. How did your people, so young, so recently spacefaring, make such a discovery? To not only conceive of this reality-shaping technology, but to master it in so short a time, it seems impossible." Ambassador Rostova looked up from the holographic display. Her calm expression was unchanged, but Vorlag now knew how to read the subtle nuances in her eyes. He saw a shadow there, a depth of history that went far beyond humanity's few millennia among the stars. "We did not invent it, High Chancellor," she said, her voice soft but clear. "No one could, not from a standing start. The theory is too complex, the required insights too counterintuitive to our perception of reality." Vorlag's crystalline form went rigid. "Then how?" "We found it," she replied. "Or rather, we were the first to properly listen. The blueprint for the Aegis, the complete unified theory of physics, the warning about the silent doom, it was all a message left for us, for anyone who could decipher it." She gestured, and the schematic on the table was replaced by a familiar image. The cosmic microwave background radiation, the faint afterglow of the universe's creation. "It was hidden here," Rostova explained. "Not in a language, not in a signal broadcast on a specific frequency. It was encoded into the very fabric of spacetime, in the quantum fluctuations of the background radiation, in the spin of primordial particles, in the precise distribution of dark matter across the cosmos. It was a message woven into the foundations of the universe itself." Vorlag stared, his mind struggling to grasp the scale of what she was implying. A message that was part of creation itself. Who could leave such a message? "We do not know their name," Rostova said, a note of reverence in her tone. "We call them the precursors. We believe they were the first civilization to arise in this galaxy, perhaps in the universe. They were the ones who first discovered the silent doom. They faced the same choice we did, but they were alone. There was no one to warn them, no one to help them." The image on the table shifted again. It showed the ruins of a truly colossal structure orbiting a dead black hole near the galactic core. It was a sphere, like the Aegis, but it was shattered, broken into continent-sized fragments of incomprehensible material. "This is all that is left of them," Rostova whispered. "Their own Aegis. It failed, or perhaps they did not complete it in time. We believe that in their final moments they used the last of their unimaginable power not to save themselves, but to leave a warning, a legacy. They encoded their science, their history, and their fate into the universe, creating the most enduring message possible. A final, desperate cry into the darkness, hoping that one day someone would be wise enough to listen." The full truth crashed down upon Vorlag. Humanity's greatest achievement was not that they had built the impossible. It was that they had listened to the whispers of a dead god. Their unique, chaotic, pattern-seeking intelligence, the same quality that made them so unpredictable, had allowed them to see the faint signal in the cosmic noise that every other species, including his own logical and orderly Cathar, had missed for millions of years. "So you are not saviors," Vorlag murmured, a profound sense of awe washing over him. "You are messengers." "We are the inheritors of a terrible truth," Rostova corrected him gently. "And now, so are you. The precursors failed. The message they left us is not a guarantee of success. It is merely a chance they never had." Vorlag looked from the image of the shattered precursor sphere to the calm, determined face of the human ambassador. He saw it then, the true nature of humanity. They were not gods. They were not conquerors. They were the children who had found a map in the attic of a ruined house, a map that showed a coming flood. and instead of keeping it to themselves, they were running through the streets, trying to wake their neighbors before the waters rose. He stood beside her, the Cathar and the human, the old and the new, and together they looked out from the chamber of celestial Concord. The hologram in the center of the room no longer showed the Terran Aegis, a symbol of mystery and fear. It now showed the nascent, glowing frameworks of new Aegis spheres being constructed around the most vital star systems of the Grand Compact. They were symbols not of isolation, but of a new, shared existence. A fragile, desperate, and magnificent unity against the encroaching silence. The fear of their neighbors was gone, replaced by the infinitely greater and infinitely more noble fear for the fate of all life. And in that shared fear, they had found their salvation.